Hi guys, welcome to another episode of 100% Joy series. Today I'm gonna tell you a story about a young boy called Joseph, who was his father's favorite. He was a boy that his father loved so much. I mean, it was so obvious. Even his siblings were very jealous of him, and the siblings were so jealous that they started plotting, to kill him. It was a boy that his father loved so much. He loved him so much that it was so obvious to the siblings, and they envied him for it. Now that wasn't all. Joseph was a dreamer, like a dreamer. He would have, and his dreams were not just any regular dreams. They were dreams that always made him look like he was, you know, the one that his brothers were going to serve. And that even infuriated his brothers the more. And they began to plan his demise. But for his elder brother, who saved him and decided that, you know what, a better fate for him was for him to be sold to slave traders. I don't know how that's a better fate, but hey, I think he was just working according to God's plan for Joseph's life. Anyway, Joseph was, sold to slave traders, and they told his father he had been eaten by a wild animal, and then he was taken to Egypt. I can imagine the culture shock for Joseph, moving from this boy who was his father's favorite, who I'm sure even when the father wants to eat, when we're growing up, parents will always give the favorite child another piece of meat, maybe the last one in their plate or something. I'm sure Joseph was that child who would get that last piece of meat. But now he's a slave, tied up, chained up, and taken to a strange land he knows no one. And I'm sure he was probably a teenager. I'm sure he was probably a teenager at the time. And he was bought by some big shot called Potiphar. And it looked like Joseph's fate was beginning to look better, because Potiphar put him in charge of his house, and then something like a butler. I'm thinking, someone who just runs the house, so you're not a slave. But Potiphar's wife decides to fall for Joseph and tries to seduce him. And of course, Joseph had principles, and he said no, and ran out of her room, and she sets him up. Long and short of it, she sets him up, and Joseph is thrown in prison. Now, I'm sure he's thinking what he had done, what in the world he had done to deserve this fate, and why God had abandoned him. Now, Joseph had hit rock bottom as far as I'm concerned, and he's in prison with criminals and all sorts of people. And then he's there for years, and these two people who worked with the king, a butler and a baker, have dreams, and they were troubled about their dreams, and Joseph was able to interpret their dreams to them. One of them was going to be called out, one of them was going to be executed, and the other one was going to be restored to his position. Now, Joseph told the one who was going to be restored to his position not to forget him when he gets out there. Eventually, the butler was restored to his position, and by the way, he forgot Joseph there for another 7 years. And then the king has a dream. And after the king had his own dream, none of his wise men, none of his sorcerers could explain his dream. None of his magicians could explain his dream. So the butler remembered Joseph and said, there's a man who explained my dream in prison. I think he'll be able to do the same. And of course, Joseph was brought out, he was cleaned up, brought before the king, and the king told him his dream, and Joseph was able to interpret the king's dream. Now, Egypt was going into a time of famine and a time of plenty. And the king asked Joseph what he was supposed to do to be able to manage this time of plenty and time of crisis coming to Egypt. And Joseph gave him a solution. And the next thing, the king made Joseph a governor, like his second in command, who was going to manage the affairs of the kingdom, and also make sure that Egypt had enough food stored and survive the time of famine. And the king gave Joseph his signet ring, which Joseph wore as a sign of authority. Now, this story is one of the most inspirational stories in the Bible. And this story means a lot to me. And I decided to tell it before we go into today's topic, because today we're going to be talking about what happens when you hit rock bottom. A lot of people see rock bottom as a bad place. But today I want you to see rock bottom from a different perspective and see what happens when you hit rock bottom. Don't go away. When we come back, let's look at what happens when you hit rock bottom. Welcome back. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, please hit that red button and also put on your notification so you know when the next episode comes up. And you have any comments, opinion, whatever you want to share, questions, please put them in the comment section. I would really love to hear from you. Okay, so what happens when you hit rock bottom? What is rock bottom? Rock bottom is like when you hit the bottom of the pit, when you hit your lowest, when you're at your lowest point in life, when you've hit a point where nothing can be worse than this. You know, when you get to that point where you say there's nothing worse than this that can happen to me. When you lose everything, when it looks like there's no way out anymore, when it looks like there's nothing that can break you more than what has broken you, you have reached rock bottom. But you see, that's the most interesting and phenomenal place you should hit in life. Because once you hit rock bottom, there's nowhere else to go but up. Because that's when your journey really begins. Every other thing you're doing before you get there is just you sampling life. When you get to rock bottom, that's where the real schooling happens. That's where the real growth happens. That's where the real test happens. And that's where you find yourself. Because at that point, you're stripped of ego. You're stripped of self. You're stripped of every distraction. You're stripped of every false image that you've had of yourself. Every mask that you've worn comes off at that point, because you are broken to a point where you surrender. You're at the point of surrender. Like, you know what? You're at the point where you go like, I don't know what life is throwing at me. I don't know what life is bringing, but you know what? I've reached a point where I've surrendered to whatever it is that is coming. And that is when the light breaks in and you begin to see your path and know how to navigate it. But a lot of times when people hit rock bottom, they think it's really the end of, the road, is the end of the journey, is the worst place to be in life. And then our attitude and perspective to it is what keeps us there. Because how long you stay in rock bottom depends on how long it takes you to pass whatever test it is to move to the next level of your life.
I haven't, but I want
There's
to
always
hear
a plan. You're not born without a plan. There's always a plan. And everything you go through, your pain, your test, is set to be commensurate to what you desire out of life. And when you begin to go through that test and pain, that's when you give yourself into it and you're not resisting it. It bets your purpose. Your purpose is what you're meant to do on earth. When you find that, you find fulfillment. And when you begin to walk in it, every other thing that you have ever wanted begins to come to you. Everybody wants to be successful, wants to be wealthy, wants to make it, but all that comes when you begin to walk in line with purpose. Because it's not just about having money, it's not just about being successful, not just about being celebrated, but it's about you being happy and fulfilled. And true fulfillment and happiness comes from doing what you're meant to do with your life. And that's one of the things you discover when you hit rock bottom. When you give up everything that is not you, when you give up everything that is false, when you give up letting everything on the outside be your problem, worry you, the circumstances around you, when you stop letting it control how you think, how you make decisions, how you live your life, and allow what is on your inside to begin to control how you make decisions, how you live your life, then you begin to find your way out of rock bottom, because that is when growth begins. Joseph found himself in a situation that he has never experienced in his life. He was his father's favorite. All of a sudden, he becomes a slave. But we don't see him revolting or rejecting the process at any point in time. He found a way to make the best of everywhere he found himself, and he kept thanking God no matter the situation he found himself. Some of us haven't even gone through some of us haven't even gone through a tenth of what he's been through. We are just about to curse God and die. I'm just in quotes, using Job's wife's words to him. We're just about to just tell God a piece of our minds and move on. But he stayed faithful. He believed that there was a plan and he was going somewhere. And then it wasn't just being a servant to Potiphar. He ended up in prison. I mean, you look at yourself and say, what am I even doing in jail? How did I get here? The culture changed, the way his life just changed overnight. But he stayed faithful. He found a way of putting his talent to work even in prison. He found a way of being of help to other people even in prison. He didn't wallow in self-pity. He didn't, let his situation overwhelm him so much that he wasn't even interested in helping other people. There are people in that situation who will say, well, you had a dream, that's your business, stick with it, because they're going through hell themselves. But he was going through hell, but he didn't let hell go through him. Instead, he was, trying to help other people get through their own situation. And at the end of the day, his gift brought him before the king. Why? He didn't let his situation kill his gift. He didn't let it downplay his gift, and he brought him before the king. He became a solution to a whole country. He became a solution to a whole kingdom. What were the odds that the king's ring was exactly a fit with Joseph's finger? It means that his life had been pre-planned, it had been predestined. He just needed to pass his test, live in line with his purpose, to connect with his destiny or desired outcome. And that was what happened for Joseph. Everything we desire is already there, is already provided. We just need to walk through our test, find our purpose, live that purpose, and walk our way to our desired outcome. When we come back, let's see how we handle ourselves when we hit rock bottom. Welcome back. How do we handle ourselves when we hit rock bottom? It's tough. I've been there. And trust me, there's nothing nice about rock bottom. In fact, it's not even a place you can think straight. It's not a place you can even be positive, even if you tried. It's not even a place you wish your enemy to go to or remain. But how do we handle ourselves there so that our stay there can be short and brief, and we can make it back up to where we're meant to be? First, we must maintain a positive attitude. It's tough, but honestly, the way you think, the way you feel, the things you say to yourself create your reality. You must see a different perspective, a positive perspective to whatever you're going through. So instead of saying, why is this happening to me? Let your words be, what is this teaching me? What is this pain meant to teach me? Because your pain reveals your purpose. Your purpose leads you to your dream life or your desired outcome. So ask what the pain is teaching you. Ask God what you're meant to learn from the pain that you're dealing with. Everything is about perspective. Do you want to see the problem, or do you want to see what the problem is betting in your life? The second thing you must do is live a life of gratitude. Now, gratitude is not only about when something good happens to you. In fact, for me, I don't think that is what real gratitude is. It's not about, oh, I just made $1 million, thank you, God. Or, oh, I just got a new house, thank you, God. I think gratitude is more about when you're in a situation where you shouldn't even be grateful, but you still find something to be grateful for. There are times I've been in, situations that honestly there's nothing to be grateful about, but I always find something to be grateful for. Either I'm going to say, thank you, God, that I even woke up this morning. Or maybe it's a small accident. And I'm like, thank you, God, that I'm even, okay, nothing happened to me. Maybe I lose something. And I'm thankful that, that thing is gone, but, it doesn't affect any other thing. It could have been worse. And that's the mentality I adopt. It could have been worse. But it's not. So I am thankful. I am grateful. So I find things to be grateful for. Sometimes it really gets so tough for me. What I do is I go on a walk. I find things to be grateful for, even from way back. Way back, as far back as 10 years or 15 years. So practice gratitude. Stay positive. Change your perspective. Keep it positive. And then speak the right words. Speak what you want to see. Don't speak what your situation is. Speak what you want to see. That's a tough and crazy one because sometimes people think you're crazy. In fact, there was a time I used to pray, and all I used to do was I prayed thanking God for the things I wanted to see, but I prayed like they had happened. And it became magical because in no time I started seeing those things happening. When you begin to do that when you're in a dark place, when you've hit rock bottom, you will see how fast you come out of there, because first of all, your eyes are open to what the test is that you need to pass through at that point in your life. You're able to see it from the right perspective. You're able to pass that test, and once you pass that test, it's your springboard to the next phase of your life. So I want you to adopt a different attitude from today. Dare to think positive or think differently about your situation. Look for the things that you can be grateful for in your present situation, and then stick to it. Every day, stay grateful. Every day, speak what you want to see. And in no time, I'm sure I will be hearing from you. That's all from me this week, and I look forward to seeing you at the top. Bye-bye.